Your cat watches you while you sleep, and it's not just random behavior, because when your cat sits there quietly in the dark, staring at you without moving, something very specific is happening. At first, it doesn't feel important. Maybe you've even woken up for a second and seen them sitting there, completely still, just looking at you like they've been doing it for a while. And in that moment, it feels strange, not scary, not threatening, just unusual. Like you've caught them in the middle of something you weren't meant to notice. Because during the day, your cat doesn't act like this. They're relaxed, distracted, sleeping, or doing their own thing without paying constant attention to you. But at night, everything changes. The house goes quiet, the lights go off, and your cat becomes more alert, more focused, almost like they've switched into a completely different version of themselves. And that's because, in a way, cats are naturally wired to be more active during low light hours, when their senses work best and the world becomes more readable to them. In the wild, nighttime isn't a time for deep sleep like it is for humans. It's a time for awareness, for movement, for subtle changes that most creatures would miss. So while you're asleep, completely still and unaware, your cat is experiencing the room in a way that feels much more alive and active. They're picking up tiny sounds, small movements, faint shifts in light, and changes in the environment that you wouldn't even notice if you were awake. And in the middle of all that, there's you, completely still, eyes closed, not reacting, not moving, almost like you've become something unfamiliar to them. To you, sleep is simple. It's rest, recovery, nothing more. But to your cat, it's a state that looks very different from their perspective. Because when you're asleep, you stop behaving like the version of you they understand. You don't respond, you don't move normally, and you don't acknowledge yourself. And for an animal that relies heavily on observation to understand the world, that sudden change matters more than you think. Your cat doesn't just see you as you. They see patterns, routines, behaviors that repeat every single day and help them predict what will happen next. You wake up, you walk around, you speak, you react. All of these things form a consistent pattern that your cat learns over time. But when you sleep, that pattern disappears. And when something familiar suddenly becomes unfamiliar, it naturally draws attention. That's why your cat doesn't just ignore you and go do something else. Instead, they sit nearby and they watch. Not in a dramatic or emotional way, but in a focused, instinct-driven way that's built into how they process the world. And if you've ever moved suddenly in your sleep, you've probably seen how quickly they react, how their attention sharpens instantly. That's because they were already watching, already aware, already focused on you before anything even happened. But this behavior isn't just about curiosity or confusion. There's something deeper underneath it that explains why they keep doing it again and again. In the wild, cats are both predators and prey. That means they don't just look for opportunities to hunt, they also constantly assess risk. They're always aware of when something is vulnerable, when something is still, when something might not be in control of its. And when you're asleep, you are in one of the most vulnerable states you can be in around them. You're not paying attention, you're not reacting, and you're not aware of what's happening around you at all. To another human, that means nothing. But to a cat, that kind of stillness carries meaning. It signals a shift in awareness, a moment where the normal rules of interaction no longer apply. So your cat stays close, not because they're confused, but because their instincts are telling them that something about this moment matters. They sit beside you, they watch the room, they stay alert while you are not. And this is where people completely misunderstand cats. They think cats are distant, independent, or uninterested in what you're doing. But in this moment, your cat is doing something very different. They are choosing to stay near you when you are least aware. They are present when you are not, alert when you are not, and focused on the environment in a way you can't be at that time. It's not loud, it's not obvious, and it doesn't look like what humans would call protection. But in their own way, they are staying with you during a state where you are not fully in control. And the fact that they do this consistently, night after night, isn't something that happens randomly, because out of everything happening in the room, every sound, every movement, every small change, they still choose to stay near you. They could walk away, explore, or focus on something else entirely. But instead, they come back to the same place. They sit near you, watch you, and remain there longer than anything else holds their attention. That kind of repeated behavior doesn't come from curiosity alone. Curiosity fades quickly, but this doesn't. This is something they've learned, something they've reinforced over time through repeated experience, because to your cat, you are not just part of the environment, you are the most consistent presence in it. Every day, every routine, every interaction you have with them builds a sense of familiarity that they rely on. And when that familiar presence suddenly becomes quiet, still, and unresponsive, it naturally becomes the most important thing to watch. That's why they stare. Not because they're bored, not because they're planning anything, but because you become the center of their attention in a moment that feels different. And the longer you stay still, the more their focus remains on you. It's almost like you've become the one thing in the room that doesn't behave the way it normally should. And for a creature that understands the world through patterns, that alone is enough to hold their attention. But even that isn't the full reason. Because if this was only about instinct or curiosity, your cat wouldn't keep coming back to you every single night the same way they do. They wouldn't choose the same spot, the same distance, the same quiet position beside you again and again. And this is where the behavior shifts from something instinctive into something much more personal. Because your cat doesn't just observe anything in the room while they're active at night. They choose what matters enough to focus on. And out of everything happening around them, they choose you. That choice is important because animals don't waste attention without a reason, especially not repeatedly. Your cat has learned that you are predictable, consistent, and safe. You are the center of their environment, whether you realize it or not. So when you suddenly become still, quiet, and unresponsive, their instinct doesn't just say ignore it. It says stay close. Because from their perspective, something important has changed about the most important presence in their world. And instead of leaving, they remain near you, watching, waiting, and staying aware of what's happening around you. This is why some cats don't just sit far away. They come closer. Sometimes they sit near your head, your chest, or right beside your body. Not randomly, but because those positions allow them to stay connected to you while also observing everything else. And if you've ever noticed your cat slowly shifting positions while you sleep, moving closer or adjusting where they sit, that's not meaningless either. They're finding the most comfortable and effective place to stay near you without losing awareness of the room. But there's something even more subtle happening here that most people never notice. Your cat is also listening to you. Not just your movements, but your breathing, your small shifts, the tiny sounds your body makes while you sleep. These signals tell them that you're still there, that nothing is wrong, that the situation hasn't changed in a way they need to react to. And when those signals stay consistent, your cat relaxes slightly. But they don't fully disengage. They remain in a light state of awareness. Not asleep the way you are, but not fully active either. It's a balance between rest and observation that cats naturally maintain, especially in environments they care about. And you are a huge part of that environment. This is also why some cats will react if your breathing changes, if you move suddenly, or if something disrupts the quiet around you. They notice it faster than you ever could, because they were already paying attention. And in those moments, you'll see it clearly. The way their body shifts, the way their ears move, the way their focus sharpens instantly. That reaction proves something important. They weren't just randomly sitting there. They were aware the entire time. But now, here's the part that most people misunderstand completely. People assume that because cats are independent, this kind of behavior doesn't mean much. They think it as just instinct, just routine, just something cats do without any real connection behind it. But if that were true, your cat wouldn't choose you specifically over and over again in the same situation. They wouldn't stay near you when you're asleep, when you're not interacting with them, when you're not giving them attention or food or anything in return, because at that moment, you're not offering them anything at all. And yet, they still stay. They stay when there's no reward, no stimulation, no reason for curiosity to keep them there. And that's what makes this behavior different. Because now it's no longer just about instinct, it's about familiarity, comfort, and something much closer to attachment than people usually give cats credit for. Your cat has learned that you are a constant in their life, something stable in an environment that can change in small ways every day. And when everything becomes quiet, when the world slows down, when nothing else is demanding their attention, they choose to stay near that constant. They choose to stay near you. Not loudly, not dramatically, not in a way that's obvious or emotional like humans expect, but quietly, consistently, and without needing anything in return. And that's why this behavior feels so strange when you notice it, because it doesn't look like affection in the way people are used to seeing it. There's no excitement, no movement, no clear signal that says this is love or this is care. It's just a cat sitting in the dark, watching you sleep. But underneath that stillness, there's awareness, familiarity, and a kind of presence that doesn't need to be obvious to exist. Your cat isn't just randomly staring at you. They're staying near you in a moment where you can't be aware of them. And that says more than most people realize. Because when your cat could be anywhere else, doing anything else, focusing on anything else, they still come back to you. They still sit beside you. And they still watch